Welcome to the Alchemy of Business Show with your host, Steve Rodgers. The Alchemy of Business Show is a podcast that mixes practical, actionable business solutions with soulful insights for anyone seeking deeper meaning in their lives and greater success in their work. Steve will be featuring purpose-driven leaders from all walks of life and getting insight into their journeys from failures to triumphs. So tune in to transition, transform, and evolve in every dimension of your business and life. And now your host of the Alchemy of Business Show, Steve Rodgers.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alchemy of Business Show. Thank you so much for listening in, whether you're on some earbuds somewhere, listening this on audio on iTunes, or maybe you're on YouTube or on E360 TV. However you're getting to us visually or audio, we appreciate you being on. Today on the Alchemy of Business Show, as always, we're talking about making wiser decisions, creating more profits in your life and in your business, and also higher purpose and how you can stay focused on your higher purpose. And our guest today really knows how to do all of these and more. I've known Johsua for many, many years, but Mr. Johsua Earp, who you're about to meet, is phenomenal. Johsua is just a great big-hearted guy with a powerful mind and a soul that just radiates everywhere. But he is an American entrepreneur. He's an investor. He's a keynote speaker. He's a crazy musician too. I mean, he's a crazy talented as a musician. He's been featured on ABC, Fox, CBS, NBS, Netflix, Showtime, Hulu, FX, Amazon Studios, and many more. He's actually and his team have been credited with marketing and publicly for The Bay, a show which was won 15 Emmys. And he regularly speaks at some of the largest, biggest conferences in the world, according to Forbes Inc. 500. And he's also spoken with people like Steve Wozniak, Edward Snowden, and his client base is just unbelievable. I mean, some of his client base is Warner Brothers, Disney, National Bank, Coca-Cola, Netflix, all the brands you would know, because they want to get to him about not only his knowledge about an entrepreneurship, but he is a leader in the top of the ranking of SEO leaders in the world who know how to help businesses get to the top of their media campaigns. He does this search engine optimization for multi-million and billion-dollar companies. He coaches and consults with millionaires and billionaires. He's been all over magazines, and his social media stuff that he does, you're going to see a little bit later in the show, the celebrities that he connects with, either in friendship or in business, is phenomenal. And Johsua is recognized as also rewriting neuroscience as we know it with a doctor who's going to tell us about. And Johsua has just been a great friend of mine, and I want to have him on the show right now and introduce him live. So Johsua, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You are welcome. Well, Johsua, the thing that's always intriguing about you, as I said at the beginning of the show, is your heart and spirit and your soul, because it radiates. But you are a multi-talented entrepreneur, businessman, now father. So how at such a young age have you been able to accomplish all of these amazing things? I mean, I was reading through your bio again, reminding myself earlier today when I was prepping for the show, and, I spoke a week or two ago, and stay in touch, but I'm like, wow, this guy has done so much at such a young age. So give us the skinny on that, dude. How have you gotten to be so successful at such a young age?
Yeah, I mean, well, I started out young, when I was like 8 years old, playing guitar, doing Magick, which led later into life into mentalism, and then hypnosis, and then from there business and how it all correlates and crazy stuff like that. But yeah, so, the way I achieved such a high level of success is because really understanding from within. That's what the word intuition means, is learning from within. And so what I was able to do is, through the success principles, right? Like Earl Nightingale, one of my buddies was about to buy, Nightingale Conant, which is like, I asked him, I was like, why are they selling that company? He said, well, it's hard to make money off dead gurus, what he said. But anyway, Earl Nightingale, right? The father of what you would call modern personal development. He said that, with his book, The Strangest Secret and all that, but with success, that it's merely the progressive realization of a worthy idea or goal. And so what I did is I just, read a copy of Think and Grow Rich, ironically enough, when I was young, and really embodied it and really took it seriously and executed the principles, which he took a lot of that information from The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles, which then, Stephen Covey, comes along and also, adds more value into the equation in terms of, the 7 habits of highly effective people and Maxwell Maltz psycho-cybernetics. And so it's kind of like a lineage that you can kind of trace, but it all goes back to the science of getting rich, and which really breaks it down to a real science, which I thought was very interesting. But entrepreneurship, it all starts with a vision, so that's what it is,
Well, when you were at this young age and you were realizing you were drawn to Think and Grow Rich and the neuroscience readings, and also I do want to talk about your unique ability to your being a magician. How with, other kids in the neighborhood that you were running with at the time, I'm sure they weren't all doing that. Like, hey, I want to be reading Think and Grow Rich. So when did you realize, 8, 9, 10 years old, when did you realize, okay, wow, I want to do this. I want to learn about this. I want to read about this. And my other buds or gal friends are not like thinking they're too, did it occur to you that you had like this yearning for knowledge and growth that some of your other peers didn't, or did that not come to light until later in life?
Exactly. And knowledge and light, those are the 2 magical words, right, for today. Knowledge and light. So, esoterically, light is consciousness and consciousness is information. And so I was always after a search for light, of information, of a higher consciousness. And through my studies, I've just been able to amass a lot of information and use discernment and compare different sources. But yeah, it all comes back to, once again, what Napoleon Hill talks about is the burning desire.
Right.
It all goes back to. And so you just have to have that burning desire. Some people have it, some people don't. But I believe any human can be trained to do anything. They just have to want it bad enough, So I have a lot of people reach out to me, on a lot of, on a daily basis, because I've taught, some of the biggest internet marketers in the world in their courses, And
you've had Frank Kearns, who was like one of the founders of internet stuff. You've had Lopez, you've had different people that have reached out to you, but I'm always, and I want to come back to that, but I'm so fascinated about you. When I first met you, we met at a conference many years ago, and you were just so inquisitive about the speakers that were there, the people that were there, and you asked great questions. And then you and I were going to go for a coffee, and the coffee was going to be like a 15 or quick 20-minute coffee.
I remember that. I gave you a download that time.
3 hours later, I'm like, whoa, this dude is fascinating. And it's amazing when you meet cool, interesting people. But when you were a kid and you were going up, and so you got into, you probably realized at some point you had these other interests. But I want to touch on the Magick piece, because you were talking about science, you were talking about systems, and that all is kind of a common theme of, and we're going to get to the SEO stuff too. But it's interesting that even though Magick, to those that don't understand Magick, like when I'm watching magic tricks, I am one of those people that go, shit, how the hell did they do that? Oh my gosh. But there is a system to musicians, yes, we're going to get to that too, but to magicians, they have to get this down to a science, and then they have to be a showman to make it look really good. So tell us a little bit. I want to talk about your ability to learn about magic, and then how did you become a really talented magician too, that you use for good? I've seen you do it in front of schools with kids. I've seen you do it with clients, or just, talking with people. And so let's talk a little bit about your magic.
Yeah, magic with a K, right, is like ceremonial, ritualistic magic that's existed for thousands of years, just like mentalism is an ancient occult science of psychological divination. And so, it's funny, I was telling someone last night, when you're, a politician or a world leader and you have all the money in the world, there's nothing that really excites you. So what do you go towards? Things like divination, right? Which alchemy is a part of that, which stems from the word alchemet, which is of Egypt, right? Which means black also as well, that opens up a whole nother discussion.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, so with magic, I might as well show you, because magic back in the day was a similar branch as science was. They were 2 very prevalent branches. But then over time, the elite class, or as I call it, the predatory class, have kind of withheld the information of true magic. By discovering these universal laws of hermetic principles, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's very interesting, because science, right? Science and magic, right? Science, going back to what I said earlier about an entrepreneur, entrepreneurship starts with a vision, all the way from Moses' vision of the burning bush down to modern science itself was discovered by a man by the name of Rene Descartes upon, once again, an angelic vision. It all begins from within. And that ties into how we rewrote neuroscience with Dr. Katsushi Arasaka, the founder of the God particle, that built the Large Hadron Collider and runs the top direct detection of dark matter experiments, such as Xenon, Darkside, and the Lux Project, out of a laboratory in Sasso, Italy, which dark matter, if you Google it right now, how expensive is dark matter? It's $1 million trillion per ounce. Wow. And you can, yeah, I mean, and then maybe we'll show that picture of me with the doctor as well. It's on my Instagram, which I'm sure we might talk about later. But
yeah, we will be for
anyway,
sure.
So with the Magick, let me just show you rather than tell you really quickly.
Yeah, cool. And as you're showing to me, try and also audio, because some people are on audio. So if you're explaining it a little bit, but I do want them to, those that are viewing, and we also put this show images in the show notes that people can come back and click on later if they want to check it out. But give us a quick sample, because we have about 4 or 5 minutes left in this segment.
So
and
this will take 2 seconds. So look,
go ahead.
Let's have a deck of cards, right? So I'm going to do this effect for you, Steve. Through
okay,
Zoom.
Great. Sounds
so
good.
Not this card, but I want you to see if you can just peek inside and just see one card. It doesn't matter which one. Just visualize it in your head, okay? Did you see a card?
Yep.
Okay, now what you're going to do is visualize the card. This is not your card, right?
Correct. That is not my card.
Anything we can envision, once again, vision in our mind, we can hold in our hand physically through manifestation. So as you concentrate on your card, watch what happens.
Whoa. He just took that from a king of diamonds to a 2 of spades.
Just the card you were thinking of?
Yes, it is. It's exactly the card.
But the crazy part is, look, this is the only card that is blue. All the rest are red. So I knew you were going to think of that card before you ever thought of it.
That is insane. That is insane. And there's got to be, obviously, Magick has this science behind it. So at some point, Johsua is going to have to tell me how he did that. And I don't know that I would do it with his artfulness, but that ties right into what you're talking about, entrepreneurship, the skill. So your Magick ability as a kid was probably a great way to attract other like-minded people who were fascinated by what you did. And it also probably allowed you this thirst for yearning and learning, because you obviously had this gene to want to learn, and you could probably never learn enough about Magick. When did you start transitioning that desire for Magick and or music into a business format? We got about 3 minutes left, but I want to talk about how this young kid who went from Magick into skills about understanding business side of things. What do you consider your first young entrepreneurial business that you did? Was it selling lemonade on the corner for a dollar, or was it doing something else in a business standpoint?
Yeah. So really, it was the first thing. My first business was a stage hypnosis business. So you know how you go to Las Vegas and you see the guy on the stage hypnotizing people and doing that. That was my first business. That's how I got into marketing, because I had to market my stage hypnosis business. Otherwise, I wasn't going to get shows. And I evolved into that. Sometimes there has to be evil, by the way, for us to evolve. But the thing is, though, is the reason I not involved but evolved into that is because I started out doing Magick when I was young. I then learned mentalism, and then from there was a natural progression into hypnosis. They're all 3 very similar performance arts, and I had other friends that were magicians that were also doing stage hypnosis shows, and I was very interested in the mind and all of that. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
Well, we're going to come back after the break here and talk to Johsua more about how he's taken Magick, mentalism, and his understanding of what really makes things tick into his expertise as being an SEO expert, one of the top in the world, of helping businesses and companies create their own magic within their businesses with lead generation to make more money, which is part of also alchemy. It's not just about purpose and higher meaning. That's a big part of it, but it really is about if you don't make profit and stay productive in your businesses, you're not going to thrive. So let's come back and talk more with Johsua, and join us after the break, everyone. Thanks for listening in.
Thank you.
Hello, and welcome back to the Alchemy of Business Show. We are here talking about wiser decisions, greater profits, higher purpose, and also Magick. So we've got Johsua Earp here. We were finding out about his background prior to the show, and he was giving us an awesome magic trip. And let's roll in from Magick here, Johsua, into the art of magic and science, which you were talking about in the first segment, and how this thirst as a young kid. We talked about Think and Grow Rich, which I want to come back to. But let's talk about how this, one of the things you do phenomenally well, and it's really opened a lot of doors for you with some of these businesses you work with, celebrities, various things. But this SEO, people have heard the word SEO, they use SEO, the search engine optimization, but not everyone understands how to master it and how to really make it work. So let's talk about when you first started putting your foot in the pond of the SEO world, and when did you start realizing you had a different approach or a different way to do what was already being done in the SEO world?
Yeah, sounds great. So yeah, basically stage hypnosis, as I mentioned, was my first business. Then I had to learn marketing from there. So before I learned SEO, I became an expert at just internet marketing in general. You know, I studied under all the greats, Dan Kennedy, Jay Abraham, which I actually had the chance of going to the Emmys with him.
That must have been memorable.
I met him at an event separately. Yeah. Lisa Abraham's her name, really nice girl. But I'm just saying, like I've studied under the best people in the world, and when it comes to marketing. And so at a very young age, and I just stuck with it, and I just knew that like I had to dedicate my life to something. And so I might as well dedicate my life on the most important piece of getting a business going, because 95% of businesses fail, they say, right? Michael Gerber with the E-Myth and all that. Mm-hmm. So, but the number one reason why most businesses fail, Steve, as I'm sure you know, is they don't take 20 to 40% of the money they're making and reinvest it back into marketing. And so therefore, how can they expect to keep the business going and the leads and everything, if you're not constantly doing marketing? And plus you're not growing the enterprise value of the company. So I did that. I became an expert at internet marketing. Then I got hired to do SEO. So the reason why I got into SEO is I got hired to do it. And like Richard Branson says, when you're offered the chance to do something, and you don't know how to do it, you say yes, and then you learn how to do it. So it was actually an advisor to the President of the United States of America at the time. I was 21 years old. I'm 30 years old now. And they had access to what some would refer to as, unlimited capital. And so they basically hired me because I don't know why. I guess they saw something in me. I was this young, ambitious, kid at the time. And I just had this thirst, like you said, for knowledge. And it was very apparent I was an expert, right, at what I was talking about. And so they gave me the budget to basically throw a bunch of spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks and what doesn't. And so if I would have never had access to that much capital in the beginning, if I would have never had, them financing even my education, I wouldn't have been able to probably achieve it. I mean, I probably would have, right? But it just would have taken more time. But anyway, so that's how I got like amazing at SEO. And I realized that 97%, this is a staggering statistic, a lot of people don't realize, 97, that's a large chunk of the pie, percent of all online experiences, the whole pie, 97% of everything done online begins with a search engine. Mm-hmm. And so, hey, it's funny, my buddy Luke's actually calling me right now that you met the real estate guy. We'll talk to him later though. But here's the thing. So that means that 3% is left to other, which includes social media, other types of other things. So the thing is, and I tell people all the time, look, social media is cute, and you can make millions of dollars off social media. I mean, we run and have access to one of the biggest, social media agencies and celebrity endorsement agencies in the world. I mean, there's no one that has more celebrities or more influencers than we do, because we've partnered with the right people. We go to all the high-end Hollywood networking parties. We meet the who's who. We, separate the wheat from the chaff. We figure out over time who's real, who's not. And it's just a process, It's a long-term process, and it takes dedication. And networking is a whole nother thing we can talk about.
And you're a master at that. Well, on the SEO stuff, for those that are more novice versus expertise in this, so if you have this budget, if you're a small entrepreneur, let's say if you own a small little restaurant you're getting started on, let's say you own a
Yeah.
basketball team, let's say you're a banker, let's say you are whatever it might be, everyone you believe can benefit from SEO. But what is the difference for the ways you can be online? Obviously there's paid advertising, there's click,
Yeah.
so can you give everybody like a general description of what are the differences of what people can be doing in their businesses? And you said 97%, if I understood you correctly, is SEO, and the other 3% makes up the remaining of that. So let's talk a bit more about the other options.
Yeah, so here's the actual statistic. There's 3 parts to it, right? So the first part is 97% of all online experiences begin with a search engine, right? Like that could include YouTube, which is the second largest search engine. I rank YouTube videos on the first page of YouTube as well. It's a slightly different algorithm, but still very similar. And even owned by the same company, obviously. And so what was the question exactly you were saying?
So when someone's trying to figure out their budget for SEO or paid advertising, paid.
Speaking of that, 75%. The second part is 75% of do not click on the ads, and then 70% do not go beyond the first page. So 97% of all online experiences begin with a search engine. 75% of those users do not click on paid advertising. And then, 70% do not go beyond the first page. So what that data tells us, because once again, I make decisions based off data. I don't make it based off assumption. I don't make it based off, there's a reason I dedicated my life. I could have chosen anything in the world. There's a reason why 10 plus years ago, I dedicated my life to one thing only, kind of like what Gary Keller says, the one thing, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I just realized, and then once again, it was based off a principle from Warren Buffett, which you had the pleasure of working with. And Warren Buffett said there's 2 steps to success. Number 1 is determining the ideal person that you'd like to invest in. Step 2 is become that person. And so that's exactly what I did. I asked myself the question, if I could become anything in the world right now, if I could have a magic genie in a lamp and I could literally grant any desire, what is the one thing or the one person that I'd like to become? And I looked at the data. I wanted it to be based off of data. And so once I came across that statistic, I saw it and I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to dedicate my life to mastering the algorithm of all search engines, not just Google. And in doing that, I will be the go-to guy, for that, and that will unlock other business opportunities for me. And because Napoleon Hill wrote an entire chapter based on specialized knowledge.
He did, absolutely. Yeah. And you and I have had a common bonding on that Think and Grow Rich book, and many, many people follow it. And I know you know it inside and out. And that led to you being on various stages. I know we have a slide here that my engineer had on slide 4 or so, and showed when you started jumping on stages, etc. Noah, why don't we slow slide 4 there? This is where are you speaking at here, Joshua? There's some different speaking engagements that you're at here on this visual for people that aren't seeing it. Where are you speaking here in some of these events?
So this is Secret Knock and Prosperity Camp, which are 2 of the largest business events according to Forbes Entrepreneur Inc. 500. And at the same time, I had the opportunity basically to open up for Edward Snowden. And, which his main takeaway from his talk after I spoke, which basically he said that, the reason why most people don't speak out against corruption is due to, fear of criticism. But I always say, the only way to avoid criticism is to do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing. So, people just need to, voice their opinion, I think, a little bit more. But anyway, they just need to gain more confidence. But no, I mean, I've spoken on stage with a lot of different individuals that I've been grateful to do so. And, I've had dinner with Buzz Aldrin, and, you'll see me, hanging out with everyone, having dinner with Mel Gibson, all the way to playing basketball with Jamie Foxx. I mean, it's really crazy how, if you master one thing and you become the expert, and then now we handle all these celebrity social media accounts as far as advertising, or as far as the, the influencer marketing, celebrity, right. And then that ties in with the movie business. Like the godfather to my son is Randy Turow, is the one that discovered Adam Sandler and produced his first movie. And we have some really great guys on our team, like Steven Spielberg's right-hand man, Mark Fusco, which is a good friend of mine. And there's just a lot of cool stuff going on. Once again, if you hang around the barbershop long enough, eventually you get a haircut. But SEO, if I was never an SEO expert in the beginning, I would have never been able to have so much capital, so much liquidity to be able to hop on private jets and fly all over the world and speak at all these events and meet all these people and do all these things, you know?
Yeah, had you not mastered your craft? Well, we're going to come back and talk more about mastering your craft. We're also going to come back and talk more about influencer marketing. We're going to also talk about Joshua's one of the companies that he's in. He has many, RTM, and we'll have some slides up to show you some of these processes that Joshua goes through, because not only on his magic trick does he make it look like, how the hell did he do that? He actually, in the SEO stuff, he's got diagrams and things that to me look like magic, but then there are science as well. So let's come back and learn more from Joshua Earp on the magic of SEO, lead generation, brand, building your brand, and building a bigger business. So come back and join us. We'll be right back. Hello, and welcome back to the Alchemy of Business Show, where we are talking about wiser decisions, greater profits, higher purpose. We also weave in spiritual intelligence into businesses. And how do you take artificial intelligence, emotional intelligence, intellect, and tie that all in to what it is you do with your life and business? And Joshua Earp, who's on as our guest today, does all of these things. So Joshua, I want to talk about this alchemy thing. I mean, you and I, when we first met, we talked a lot about alchemy, and you have a real knowledge of the origin of alchemy and what it means. But you've done that in your own business, even though your business is not called Alchemy. You have actually quite a few businesses you're involved in. But let's talk about your main business, so that's your own alchemy of your skills, your talents, your task, and what it is that you do under your brand and who you do that for, and what are the kind of results you normally get for people. So I'm going to turn this over to you so you can tell us a little bit about your company and yourself on this piece.
Sounds great. So, so basically, guys, this is realizethemarket.com, which is one of my agencies. I also have a personal SEO agency as well. So you can reach out to me on my Instagram directly if you're interested in that, which is also listed on the slide. And what really makes us different is everything we do is based off performance. You know, we have typically the client cover the hard costs, whatever they may be. You know, because every package, everything's different, right? We don't have cookie cutter pricing. We customize a plan that fits specifically for you and what you're trying to accomplish in your budget. And then basically we have the client cover the hard costs so that we don't go into the negative marketing someone else's business, right? But once they cover the hard costs, we do everything based off performance. So for every $1 million that we generate, usually we take somewhere around, you know, $100,000, sometimes $50,000. It just depends on each specific case. But what we do and what makes us different is that besides, you know, dealing with the biggest clients in the world and advising the biggest brands and people, et cetera, like Dell Computers, I've advised, you know, as you mentioned, I think earlier in the call, I've spoke on stage with Steve Wozniak, founder of Apple, all this. And it's really because we reverse engineered the patents of Google. You can go to patents.google.com and learn more there. And then once we reverse engineer the patents, we develop software, or we use software that's already created to do whatever is in the patent that we need to do. And so we develop standard operating procedures based off of those patents. And then we scientifically A/B split test our backlinking strategies so that we can isolate variables and see over time through testing data what actually works to rank a site on the top of Google and what does not. Once again, it's throwing spaghetti at the wall analogy, right? And
right. And you're making it not look like spaghetti once it hits the wall. You're actually turning it into magic and converting it. How often is Google changing this data that you have to analyze? Like once you've mastered the trick and you go, oh, got this down, how then often is Google switching that up?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm just curious on how often they're switching up the game on you.
For sure. Sorry, it was a little delayed, so I started talking at the same time. But yeah, so that's a great question. Now, you know, like Thomas Edison said, he who experiments the most wins. Plain and simple, right? Thomas Edison also said, I was bound to succeed because I simply ran out of ways that did not work. You know, I mean, everyone knows that whole 10,000, you know, tries light bulb, you know, Thomas Edison quote, but this is a different quote.
Yeah.
It means something very similar, but this is a different quote. I heard Napoleon Hill say this. Thomas Edison said that I was bound to succeed. I was bound to succeed because I simply, ran out of ways that didn't work, right?
Right,
So,
right. Yeah.
so
That's
anyway,
the essence of being tenacious, no doubt about
yeah,
that.
yeah. So there's a lot of that going on, right? To answer your question, there's a lot of that going on. But at the same time, Google can shift their algorithm any way that they want. It doesn't matter to me. Because you know what? The way I look at it is like a game of heads-up poker. I can always see their cards, but they can never see mine. So any algorithm update they do, all I have to do is go to the first page of Google and start reverse engineering the backlinking strategy and the optimization so I can see what changes they made. It's all out in the open. It's just nobody.
People just don't know where to look for it like you do. Yeah. I mean, at least a common, man like me I'm not an expert.
It's very complex. I mean, you have to understand on-page, and off-page optimization in terms of URLs, titles, anchor text, keyword density, internal keyword anchor text, the percentages and portfolios there. I mean, it's a whole big thing. And so, yeah, that's kind of, and not only that, I want to say also that even though Google may, like I said, update and change their algorithm, it doesn't, once again, matter, because here's another reason why on top of those reasons. It's because the fundamental elements of the internet as we know it is always the same. Meaning that if you ask yourself the question, what is the internet? The answer is a bunch of web documents linking to other web documents. That's all the internet is. And so Google can update whatever they want. I'll just go to the first page, reverse engineer, see what they did. They can do that all day long. That's fine with me. But the fundamental basis and principles universally of the internet foundationally itself is not going to change. And if it does, I'll change with it. But I don't see it changing anytime soon. And that's why we do what's called backlinking. So we basically get high quality backlinks and do the right on-page optimization, and Google sees all these citations and all these credible sources linking to your site. Therefore, with the right anchor text, it then ranks it on the first page.
And then on those, when you started doing that for yourself, and you said you started that in your hypnosis business and your Magick stuff, and then someone came after you and said, "Hey, want to give you a shot." What were some of the first known brand names that were on your bio, or some of the bigger ones who went, "Well, yeah, I'm working for so and so or X"? Who were some of the first people that you had as early adopters on your stuff?
Really, as far as early adopters, it was mostly lawyers. Because it was a lawyer that, as I told you, was an advisor to the president of the United States at the time. And, here I am at 21 years old. Like, it's just kind of a crazy story when you really think of it. And I came from nothing, too, by the way. Like, zero, zip, zilch, nada, I came from nothing. In fact, in a very bad position. But that, I feel like, once again, we must experience evil in order to evolve. But after I got, a bunch of lawyers as clients because they just wanted the phone to ring, and, with personal injury and things like that, one phone call could be millions of dollars for them, So it's like, it just makes sense to pay somebody, and I was charging him like next to nothing, so he was making.
You were learning it as well, but you were getting your chops done. So you were really focusing on your craft, knowing that you were doing that, I'm assuming that you knew you would eventually be upping your price.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And was the attorneys the one that led to the celebrity stuff? Because I know you've done stuff with celebrity brands. So let's talk about celebrity brands, and I want to weave that into. Then we only have about 5 minutes left in the segment, but I want to lead that into your SEO stuff, how you've gotten into the celebrity piece. And then a big thing we hear a lot about is influencer marketing, and you've found a way to merge SEO, networking, and celebrity influence marketing into, again, an art and a business. So let's kind of talk about that as we're wrapping up this segment. We have about 4 or 5 minutes left in this.
Yeah, for sure. So after lawyers, then I started teaching the biggest internet marketers in the world. And then I moved to Beverly Hills and, many, many years ago. And I started doing a lot of networking. And through my unique skill set, and due to me being able to increase the enterprise value of the companies I was working for, I was able to render my services at over $1 million. And so then I started becoming an advisor to many companies. I mean, I've ran companies that had clients like Disney, City National Bank, Television Academy, what else? Let's see. Like all these crazy big names, like I said, mentioned earlier, Dell Computers. And that's because I just, success, once again, is two other unique principles that I think are worth mentioning, which is not just determine the ideal person you'd like to invest in and become that person, but also, it's about getting in the room with the right people. And then step two is doing something about it once you're there. And so I just wanted to say that really quickly. And then to zone in further on your question, how did it, really, how did I get in the celebrity market, all that? And just word of mouth referral,
Mm-hmm.
So our team, we do the advertising and things like that for the biggest celebrities in the world and the biggest content creators in the world. And so really our influencer marketing is a list of 6,000 TikTok and Instagram stars that for all the biggest followers in the world, billions and billions and billions, if not trillions of followers. And then on the other side is what else? Is just the celebrity, like the actual celebrities, right? The motion picture stars, the music stars. And we have about 200 to 300 of those. And so we broker the deals between the big brands and the celebrities. And then we're also an advisor to startup companies and technology companies and all that stuff. So.
Well, and we're, for those of you that can't see it, because if you're just listening in, we're scrolling through Joshua's Instagram page here, who's a who's who of the celebrity world. So who are some of the people that are popping up here, Joshua, for those that can't, just to name 3 or 4 of these, and then I want to jump to the influencer marketing, and then we have to sign off on this segment. But who are some of the people that they would see if they were scrolling through your Instagram that you've rubbed shoulders with, or that you're helping with on their brands or building their own businesses?
Yeah, so you'll see me having dinner with Mel Gibson, playing basketball with Jamie Foxx. As I mentioned, speaking on stage with Steve Wozniak, working with all the A-list celebrities, Snoop Dogg, Usher, Drake and his dad. I've been on television, on big shows, things like that. Universal Studios also, or Universal Pictures, I would teach the producers there, and like the chairman of NBC's at the time, he's no longer working there, but the chairman of NBC's team, I was helping advise them and handling their marketing campaigns. In NBC Universal, that's a big company.
Yeah, it's huge. That's massive. Yeah, for sure.
So it's just the result of true alchemy within the mind. True alchemy is not the transmutation of base metals into gold. True alchemy is the transmutation of a human into a divine soul, a human soul into a divine soul. And
I love that. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, that is the essence of, I think, what all of our souls are yearning for, and some don't know it, and some are aware of it. But that's kind of that yearning that's always pulling us when we're being pulled towards stuff that we feel we have this calling, or something's missing, or it's because the universe is pulling us into what you just said. So can you repeat that again? Because that's so powerful.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add to it. There's a book you guys need to check out called The Theatrum Chemicum Britannicum. And
say it one more time. Those are big words. So say it one more time.
Theatrum Chemicum Britannicum. And it's Sir Isaac Newton's, alchemy Bible that has real recipes of how to do real alchemy. In fact, it was said that Sir Isaac Newton died from mercury poisoning, which mercury is the only thing that can purify gold. Just like why they call, in the book, The Three Initiates, they call him Hermes, the Hermeticism, right? One of the universal principles. They call him Hermes Mercurius Trismegistus, because mercury is the only thing that can purify gold, and Hermeticism is, they say, one of the few, if not only, spiritual practices that can purify the human soul the same way mercury would purify gold through divinity, right?
Well, I love that. And your comment about transmutation of a human into a divine alchemy, that's so powerful. Well, I want to come back and spend the whole last segment on spirituality in business and how that is a common theme in your life. I mean, you mentioned earlier that you're only 30 years old, but in your late teens, 20s, 30s, you have been a spiritual activist in your own right, of your own mind, and then also sharing with others, because you're so educated on the nuances of religion and spirituality and alchemy and stuff. So I want to come back and talk with you more about transmutation. I want to talk to you about human souls. I want to talk to you about your own definition of spirituality. And you now have a son that you are so proud of, and you have a little guy I want to talk about. And I'm wondering if that's even heightened your desire for understanding spirituality and passing it on, and through you have another legacy now that you didn't have a year ago. So everyone, hopefully you'll stay tuned in and listen with Johsua Earp here about his intelligence, his spiritual intelligence, and his business intelligence that are all just magically his own wonderful alchemy. Stay tuned here on the Alchemy of Business, and we will be right back. And welcome back to the Alchemy of Business. We are digging deep here with my guest, Mr. Johsua Earp, talking about spirituality, talking about business, talking about SEO, talking about the internet. And what's fascinating about the internet, of the magic that Johsua does in that, it's not unlike the power of the universe that we're going to jump in and talking about spirituality in the universe. And to me, the internet is kind of a very remedial process that the higher consciousness of the universe does all the time, every day, without blinking, of how things just work. Mother Nature, the tides coming in and out, the moon, the sun, and the stars all going on their pattern. So that's been way around before the internet or the metaverse coming before us. So Johsua, I want to wrap our segment talking about that. But before we do that, let's start out with a little fun here. You have such a fun Instagram page. We went ahead and we have a little game that we do, and it's called Instantly Interesting Instagram. So what we've done is we went and pulled, there's only 3 steps to this. So basically the way it works is that we went in and we took a quick look and a dive on your photos on Instagram feed. Number 2, we're going to pull them up, and there's some interesting ones without context. And then we're going to have you real quick and fire around, just kind of tell us real quickly each one, tell us more about what was happening in this photo and who the person is that's in that photo. So I won't steal the thunder. I'll let you do those. So we'll just go those pretty quickly, and then we will roll into that. So it is time for Instantly Interesting Instagram. So here we go. So Johsua, who is this dude here with these cool sunglasses on and the bling going on?
Yeah, I know. It's like, who wears their sunglasses indoors, you know? they say the sun never sets on a badass, right?
This guy's definitely a badass. So who you with in this picture?
That guy is, a real spiritual gangster. You know, his name's Mr. Snoop Dogg, and or Doggy Dog, however you want to say it, depending on how well you know him, right? But very, very nice guy, very humble, very low key type of guy, in person. And I had originally first met Snoop whenever I was working with Drake's father, which is this amazing gentleman named Dennis Graham, another great guy. And, because I used to work with, Drake's manager, which is Future the Prince, just on a few shows here and there. We'd have Dennis come and perform and stuff like that. So nothing major. But,
Snoop was just in the Super Bowl, so he's no small potatoes. I mean, when you get to play at the Super Bowl, you kind of he's gotten to the top of his craft. I mean, I saw him, excuse me, on something he was on. He was doing, and I did not realize the wealth he had created and the other businesses that he has dovetailed into besides his rap music. He really is a serial entrepreneur. I'm assuming he probably has wanted to learn how SEO works and how to get more of his own brand out in the world. I would assume.
Yeah, exactly. And, I'm good friends with his managers and stuff. But the thing is, it's like this specific photo, because, there's many different photos with Snoop on different occasions. This specific one was at a charity event that we did, because we're very involved in, giving back. And a lot of the charities, 90+% of them are, even though they claim to be giving back, they're really not. So this is where I want to, mention one of my buddies' charities that I know is legitimate, that I've invested.
Yes, please. And we'll put it in the show notes. What is
it? Watering Seeds. And the money goes where it's really supposed to go. The guy is a great-hearted guy. His name is Brady Mazzola. And wateringseeds.org, I think, might be his, the URL. And it just helps veterans, and it helps, disabled individuals. And I've seen it firsthand. I mean, I see this guy spending with his own money, paying for hotel bills for disabled individuals, and like, it's just something that really warmed my heart. I've never seen anything, in person like that, like a real true individual. So I just had to be a part of it. But anyway, so this is a different charity event though that I'm, ran into Snoop at. But but yeah, really cool
Well,
stuff.
we'll make sure we get the watering seeds in the show notes for anyone who would like to learn more about it. Sounds like an awesome cause. Thanks for sharing that. What do we have next there, Noel, on what's their next photo? Here's another cool looking dude here. Does not have his sunglasses on inside, but I know this is quite the celebrity. So who are you with in this picture, Joshua?
Yeah, so this is King Batch, and he's what you would call a social media influencer. And you know, as I mentioned, we have really, I would argue, one of the biggest, not just influencer, you know, marketing agencies, but also celebrity endorsement agency. I think I've already said that earlier, but this is the reason why, you know, I mingle with a lot of these guys, is because of the fact that it's so lucrative to connect brands that need exposure and need more of a user base.
Mm-hmm.
So you can really generate a lot of liquidity very fast, and all you have to do is connect the dots.
Awesome.
You know, they do the work. They already have a pre-built audience.
What is it now that's considered, quote, an influencer? Is there is it on Instagram or YouTube a certain amount of views, a certain amount of followers? When would someone realize that another brand would say, hey, we want to tag onto them because they, quote, have become an influencer? Is it categorized by followers, or how does that get determined if you are a influencer?
Yeah, I mean, it's really anybody who's in a position of influence, right? But that's why I like this book right here. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Great book, right?
Mm-hmm.
I never even read the book because I don't need to, but I did read the table of contents, which is something Ty Lopez talks about. And basically your brain, through what's called counterfactual simulation, will reverse engineer the steps and will basically give you the concepts, right? But anyway, so I just wanted to point that out because everyone always tells me, Josh, you've got to read all these books. Like, it's got to be crazy, you know, to read all these books. And to be honest with you, I don't really read them much. I mean, here's another one right here that, you know, this one is called Influence, right? But
yes.
Robert Cialdini. I've never read this book either. You know, it was actually Jim Rohn that said, but I like to keep the books around me, right? They say rich men have large libraries, you know, poor men have large TVs.
Well, you retain such data. So it's, I mean, do you have do you have like a photographic memory in any way?
Exactly. I have a photographic memory, and a lot of it comes from the internet and videos and things like that.
Yeah. Because you retain data like above and beyond most human beings. I mean, I know when you absorb data, you retain it and you know how to use it in the appropriate settings and formats. So I'm always fascinated by that. Let's jump back to this next guy on this slide that we have. This gentleman here, who I'm sure people have heard of if they're in the marketing social media space. I met this guy actually many, many years ago before he was at the level he is now, when he was doing his wine blogs. But who you are with this picture there, Joshua?
Yeah, so this is when I was speaking on stage with Gary Vaynerchuk, along with Steve Wozniak. As I mentioned earlier, it was the same event. And he's a real nice guy, you know. On his social media, sometimes he can be taken different ways by different people. But in person, from my experience, he was, you know, a really nice, humble guy.
Yeah, I've heard that from many people. I met him a long time, Rich, very, very briefly, but I've seen a lot of people that have interacted with him, and they're always surprised at how warm and charming he is in person, because Gary V, as he's known, can be really abrupt on social media and loves to use the F-bomb and throw it around, et cetera, et cetera. But literally, when I started following him in the early days, his father owned liquor stores, and he wanted to be able to figure out how to get his dad's liquor store to scale and grow. And he started doing wine blogging back when people were talking about how you should have a blog, which in its own way, I know has a lot of SEO stuff around having ability to pull SEO content from blogs. But he went on to do that in other ways, and he's now created a massive marketing agency, and he's done a phenomenal job of becoming his own influencing brand and using marketing. So let's jump to one. I think we've got one more slide here, and then we're going to jump to some conversation about spirituality. Who's this in the cool cowboy hat with stars on it?
Yeah, that was actually a gift that myself and my crypto business partner gave him. And so that's Brock Pierce. He just ran against Donald Trump and Joe Biden for president of the United States of America, which, you know, ties in also with his bloodline. Very interesting, cool, you know, great-hearted person as well. He's the co-founder of many billion-dollar companies such as Tether, EOS, you know, multi-billion-dollar companies, like hundreds of billions, you know, and multiple of them, right? And he's the chairman of the Bitcoin Foundation. He's, you know, he's a very, very interesting guy. He flew us out on, his private jet to go list with all the top TikTok influencers and guys that are friends with like the co-founders of Netflix and all this stuff. And he flew us all out. That jet fuel isn't cheap. And, to attend one of his speeches whenever he was doing his presidential campaign, which my other friends are his presidential advisors, kind of like what I talked about earlier is, when I got involved in SEO, I was working with the advisors to the president. And it was just really weird stuff because I was so young and I didn't have any experience in that world, but I was very well read, especially in those topics. And like David Geffen, the highest paid man in entertainment, said that politics and show business are exactly the same things. They're even broadcasted on the same channels.
Yeah.
The only difference
in that, yeah. There's so much truth in that.
The only difference, and this is the highest paid man in entertainment saying it's not me, the only difference between politics and show business is that in show business, they pay you more because you're.
And that's powerful. And that's so true. Well, let's jump off of that. Thank you for entertaining us here on the instantly interesting Instagram spot. We've only got about 2.5 or so minutes left, but I want to not waste that time of not talking to you about some spirituality stuff. So you are a very spiritual guy. I mentioned that you are, congratulations on a brand new baby boy. His name is Wyatt, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I forgot to mention I'm related to Wyatt Earp. Yeah. So.
So your boy is now how old? 6 months old?
He's 9 months old.
9 months old now. Wow, it's going fast. Well, when you have another being that you bring into the planet, and now your quest and thirst for your own spiritual stuff, and we've talked about spirituality, some of the stuff through this segment in breadcrumbs. But what is your own definition of spirituality? How do you define it, and how do you define it for yourself? And I'm curious about how you're going to be incorporating that in with raising your son.
Yeah, so I didn't let religion, right, which comes from the Latin root religare, which means union. Same thing with yoga. That's Sanskrit for the word you, which also means union. I didn't let religion interfere with my spirituality. I also dropped out of high school when I was, 17. Dropped out of high school. Because I didn't want to let schooling interfere with my education. It's all about letting nothing interfere, right? And so the thing is the word, what is my definition of spirituality? Well, I would just first begin by analyzing what the definition of spirituality is. And so the word inspiration comes from the word in spirit. The word spirit comes from the word spire, which means to breathe. So what's interesting is the spirit is the breath is the spirit. The moment we stop breathing, that is the moment our spirit leaves our body. And now what's interesting is the word conspire or conspiracy literally by definition means to come together and to breathe. So that's why I think it's funny when people throw around the word conspiracy theorist. It was created by the CIA after the JFK assassination, so that they could just label people that ask basic questions. Oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. But anyway, so history is kind of crazy stuff. His story.
That's very true.
His story. But here's the thing, though, Steve. So that's the word spirit, right? And then that's why they call it the respiratory system, because it has the word spire within the word respiratory system. And ironically enough, dimethyltryptamine, which I was just talking to Joe Rogan about this not too long ago, is because he was really big into DMT and stuff. Dimethyltryptamine is 2 trivial enzymatic steps from tryptophan, produced in the pineal gland, which is where you get the pine cone, the statues of the pine cone out in front of the Vatican. Or you'll get, Buddha with the pine cone hair, symbolic of the pineal gland, which is our third eye, because it literally has a retina.
Right here, yeah, for sure.
It has a retina, cornea, and a lens. If I ask you to close your eyes and think about a blue car, you would be able to see the blue car. Well, how can you see something if both your eyes are closed? The answer is the third eye. So the dimethyltryptamine, which is 2 trivial enzymatic steps from tryptophan, it's a neurotransmitter produced in the brain that has a tryptamine nucleus, right? Is classified as an entheogen, or a psychoactive drug, they would say, but it's a natural occurring compound and alkaloid, right? So the crazy thing is your own body produces this stuff. And so, like I said, it has a tryptamine nucleus, which is very important to understand because it's classified as an entheogen. That's the classification of psychedelic it is. An entheogen, which comes from the word entheos. It's like the word enthusiasm, right? They all come from the word entheos, which means of God, or whatever that universal energy is you'd like to call it up there. And so what's interesting is, also Napoleon Hill wrote an entire chapter once again.
He did, yes.
On enthusiasm. He said it's much better to be enthused than it is excited, because one is external, one is internal.
Yes, that's so true.
Is internal. Excitement is external, just like esoteric means inner, and exoteric means outer, right? And so it's very, very interesting stuff. And so
it's really fascinating. Well, it sounds to me just like you've deconstructed and then construct the internet on your SEO stuff. Sounds like you've done that the same in your spiritual understanding for yourself of deconstructing, constructing, and then pulling it back into how it all matches up.
Yeah, but the most DMT, check this out, Steve, produced in our body is not just in the pineal gland. The most DMT is produced in our lungs during conscious breathing. And so literally, that's why they call it the spirit molecule. And so it's very interesting because once we rewrote neuroscience with the founder of the God particle, we found out that there was a microsaccadic eye movement. By studying microsaccadic eye movement and the corollary discharge between central pattern generators, CPGs, in the brain, and studying the information processing between the eyes and the brain, we found that there was a couple millisecond delay between the processing of the transference of the information between the eyes and the brain, the corollary discharge, they say, by studying the microsaccadic eye movement, right? And so what we've been able to find out is that it's the excitation before the inhibition. So what that means is that it's not our eyes. This is a scientific breakthrough. It's not our eyes that see what's around us and then broadcast the message to our brain. It's actually our brain that begins with the image first, and then our eyes broadcast outwards what's already inside of us. And the reason why I thought this was extremely fascinating is because if you study the ancient Hermetic principles and universal laws, you'll find out that there's a saying which is as above, so below,
right.
As within, so without. And so that's where you get the word intuition, learning from within. It's enthusiasm. It's, being enthused.
Well, I love all that. And I wish we weren't out of time, but we are out of time. So as we wrap up here with just a closing question, now that you have your son and you have all this knowledge about spirituality, humanity, society, business stuff, what is it that you're envisioning as a father that you hope and plan to help contribute in creating the world that you would like your son to live in? I know that's a big question, but for Wyatt, what is it that you're wanting the most for Wyatt in his life ahead, now that you know what you know?
Well, the primary role of the parent is two things. You're supposed to give the child love, and you're supposed to give the child confidence. And as long as no matter what happens in life, as long as you've given your child love and you've given that child confidence, you have fulfilled what is known as your primary role as a parent. And so I would have to say that is my primary role as a parent. And I would have to say that in addition to that, I'm going to teach him everything that I know. And I'm going to teach him magic and mentalism and how to play guitar and all the crazy stuff, that I do and know and practice, search engine optimization, how to produce movies, how to, do all that stuff. So I'm very excited to teach him the new skills. And, I started when I was 8 years old. He's already trying to learn SEO, and he's only a little over 8 months.
Yeah.
He sit on my lap while I'm doing SEO.
He's already trying to knock you off the keyboard. Hey, Dad, slide over. Let me in there. Let me show you how it's done, right?
Yeah, so that's really what I would say, and that's the advice I would give to other parents. And just realize that even if you've had a rocky relationship with some of your children, it's never too late. And it's always right. The time is always right to do what's right.
Yeah, the time is always right to do what's right. Well, let's end on that note. Well, Wyatt's got one good life ahead of him with a dad like you, and I'm sure you and mom together with him will be creating a lot of love, a lot of confidence, and the theme here of alchemy is really creating a life of that, a life of significance. I love the life of love and a life of confidence, and creating all of your talents and gifts to be able to move forward and be a servant leader in the world and to serve others with your highest gifts. So we obviously have Mr. Johsua Earp, who does that at a very high level at a very young age. So thank you, Johsua, for sharing your wisdom, your heart, your passion, and your soul with us today. I know that the listeners and viewers will have gotten a lot out of this segment. So we'll make sure all of these items are in show notes, so you can link back and find more about Johsua on his websites, his Instagram. They'll be in the show notes. And Johsua, again, thanks for being on. Any closing thoughts here before we wrap up?
I would just say, that like what I said earlier backstage, which is that we are the creative expression of the universe experiencing itself. That's why karma exists. Because like Dr. Wayne Dyer says, when we harm one individual, we're not just harming one individual. We're harming all individuals. We're harming the generic individual, right? And so I just want to let people know that, if our worst nightmares can come true, then so can our wildest dreams.
Absolutely. Love that. Well, inviting more good in, more God in, more greatness in. We can all do more of that. So thank you for those wise words, Johsua. And thank you again, listeners or viewers, for listening to the Alchemy of Business. We will be back next time, and we will be talking more about wiser decisions, greater profits, and higher purpose. Thanks for listening in.
And that concludes this episode of The Alchemy of Business with your host, Steve Rodgers. If you found value in today's broadcast, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing with friends, and leaving a review. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next Thursday for another episode. Be blessed and see you soon.